All right, good evening. My name is Mark Pharmacy, and I am chairman of the East Hampton Water and Sewer Commission, which acts as the town's Water Pollution Control Authority, or WPCA, in accordance with state statutes and the town charter. We are in charge of managing the town's wastewater collection system. We also, in collaboration with the town of Colchester, manage the wastewater treatment facility that is jointly owned by the two towns. Currently, there are a total of 2,900 East Hampton accounts who discharge to the sewer system that include approximately 67% of the town residents. Sewer use fees that are currently $580 a year for the typical East Hampton user are set by the WPCA and fund the entire operation of the system, whose budget for the 2025-2026 fiscal year is about $2.3 million. The town does not contribute to the WPCA budget other than the sewer users fees on town properties that discharge to the system. In addition to the operation of the sewer system, the WPCA is responsible for the evaluation of potential expansion of the sewer system to address potential environmental or public health needs, as well as to support development in accordance with the town's zoning boards, planning, conservation, development, and other applicable regulations. I must emphasize that WPCA is not the town entity in any way that is encouraging or driving development. It is only looking to serve existing development with potential sewer needs or to facilitate new development that is in full accordance with regulations and approvals by other town entities. While the WPCA has not recommended or taken any action on it, tonight you will hear about an opportunity for potential expansion of the sanitary sewer system that has become available through a combination of proposed development and the town's plans for road reconstruction on a number of streets. These streets were previously identified as potential phase 2 areas for expansion of the sewer system in the original plans for the system. The combination of these factors make the beneficial assessment for access to the sanitary sewer roughly equivalent to the cost to rebuild or replace an existing septic system, which is currently running $25,000 to $50,000 and is payable in full to the contractor at the time of installation. The proposed beneficial assessment, which based on alternatives you will hear tonight, is currently estimated at somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 and would be repayable over 40 years or 20 years at a cost of about $100 to $170 a month. This assessment would not include a homeowner's cost for making the connection to the sewer or the current WPCA connection fee of $7,000, which would likely be waived by the WPCA should this project go forward. If the same potential system expansion needed to be completed in the future without integrating the long crossing development or road paving project, costs would be substantially higher. Based on these considerations, the town staff and WPCA thought it should be brought to the potentially affected residents' attention to assess interest and to receive input on this opportunity. To be absolutely clear, the WPCA has not recommended or made any decision on the potential expansion, and we're looking to receive input from potentially affected residents in the rest of the town. Despite a range of online comments, the WPCA does not need to or stand to make any money on this, as the beneficial assessment for the new users would solely cover bond payments for the construction costs. Furthermore, all WPCA costs are borne by the users of the system, and all money collected in user charges are spent solely on system operation, maintenance, and needed improvements. So no users are not necessary to fund operations. However, adding new users can benefit the 2,900 current accounts by helping to mitigate future increases in sewer use charges by spreading the costs over a larger number of users. Tonight, you will first hear a presentation that provides a brief history of development of sewers in the town, an overview of potential areas for expansion, the current preliminary planning level estimates of cost, and if this were to proceed, alternatives for potential approaches for implementation. Following the presentation, we open the floor to public comments and questions. If the current approach under consideration is not acceptable, the WPCA would also be interested in receiving public feedback on what combination of conditions and costs would make a sewer system expansion in the future desirable. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and give everyone a chance to speak who would like to. Also recognizing the preliminary nature of the planning at this time, The WPCA and staff will also answer questions to the best of our ability. With that introduction, I'll now turn the information session over to Anthony DeSimone, who is the town's public utility administrator and a former member of the WPCA. And Tony's a Connecticut professional engineer who, before starting work for East Hampton, been responsible for managing a wide range of sewer collection system, pump station, and wastewater treatment facility improvements for other Connecticut facilities.
Thank you, Mark. Next slide. It is, you're probably gonna go down. There you go. So we're gonna kind of give you a brief outline of the presentation. We're gonna talk about the planning. What was it built? Sorry. Thank you. There we go. Can you hear me now? We're gonna go over kind of the history of sewer development, why we have sewers in town, what phase of the projects were put in, and then kind of the planning that went into this project. And then we're gonna open it up for a public discussion. So in the 1960s, the town did 4 engineering studies. They were driven by a pollution abatement order from the precursor of Connecticut DEP, and it recommended sewers. In the 1970s, they did 2 studies. One was a local study and one was a regional study with the town of Colchester. And they decided to go with the regional study with the town of Colchester, and it recommended a regional system and a 3.9 million gallon per day treatment plant located at Gildersleeve Drive. Now it's not easy to see on this map, but this map is right out of the 1970 study, which I brought it, it's right here. And it shows the phase 1 and phase 2 sewer areas. And the town only implemented the phase 1 areas, which we got roughly 90% grant money when we put those in. The town fathers at the time that this was done in the 1980s decided to not do the phase 2 areas because they felt it was too expensive and they forego the substantial grant money. The areas that we're discussing today were included in the phase 2 sewer expansion study, and you can't really see it that well on this map, but there was an interceptor sewer that literally ran from Clark Hill along the Pine Brook to Route 16 and then onto the sewage treatment. One of the things that the study did note is that poorer soils scattered throughout the majority of the remaining areas of the town are in numerous smaller areas with soils not generally suitable for subsurface disposal. So those are what led to the recommendations for this sewer area. So what was implemented in the 1980s? The phase 1 for the town of East Hampton was implemented, the phase 1 for the town of Colchester, the interceptor sewers, which run around Lake Poquetapog and the village center. There were 2 regional pump stations. One of them is located in front of American Distilling. It's a little green can. If you drive by, there's this little, it's like, I don't know, 4 feet in diameter, about 4 feet tall. That's one of our pump stations that accepts flow from Marlboro. And then on Middletown Avenue, we have the large regional pump station that takes flow from all 5 of the member communities. And they constructed the 3.9 MGD treatment plant on Gildersleeve Drive. So this actually came up at the council meeting last night. So the majority of this project, because of the regional entities associated with it, was 90% funded through a grant, 80% federal, 10% state. The original assessment paid in 1980 was $1,975, and it was paid back over 75 years, which came out to be $79 per year per unit. The grant portion of that assessment was $19,750. If you escalate that to today's dollars, the total assessment would have been $75,000 per unit. There were mandatory hookups at the time of this project. This is just a snapshot of where things stand today, what outflow allocations are, what flows are. I know some of you have raised the questions about, does the treatment plant have capacity? We are running roughly 40% of our permitted capacity. So capacity at the treatment facility is not an issue. So how did this project come about? So in 1980, when they put the system in, they left the 12-inch stub at the intersection of Alden's Crossing and Route 16. That was for the phase 2 project, that interceptor that was going to go up along the Pine Brook to Clark Hill. Never got built. In 2005, we did a wastewater facilities plan that identified areas that potentially could need sewer in the future. They were mostly the areas that were identified in the phase 2 project. Again, these areas were included in that plan. These proposals are currently in compliance with the plan of conservation and development. Sewer expansion in this area was discussed in 2014 and again in 2020. Sewer expansion was again discussed in 2024 in support of an affordable housing project on Long Crossing. Also in this time, town staff notified WPCA staff that they were planning to pave several of the roads in these areas. So one of the comments we got in the plan of conservation and development meetings that drives residents absolutely crazy is when the town goes in and paves a road and then rips it up several years later and then repaves it. It's just a waste of taxpayer money. So the WPCA felt it was prudent to bring this to the residents to say, hey, we have this unique opportunity. Is this something that you're interested in? So in the winter of 24, spring of 25, we identified a routing of how sewers would be laid out, where pump stations would be located. Again, pump stations are located in your low points. You collect the wastewater at the low point, pump it up to the high point, let it flow by gravity to the next segment. We identified flows, and this project identified roughly 210 homes that could potentially be affected, 400 units, equivalent dwelling units, of which 100, you'll see on the next slide, 199 of those are associated with the affordable housing project. And we anticipated that at full build out, there could potentially be 100,000 gallons of wastewater generated, of which we know we have sufficient capacity at the treatment. So some of you are aware of this project, some of you are not. There's currently a 198 unit affordable housing project proposed at 30 Long Crossing. That project is being implemented under Connecticut Statute 830G, which limits the input that the town can have on these projects. By doing that, the project requires 15% of the units to be either rented or sold at 60% of the median household income for the town, and another 15% at 80% of the median household income. So what that means is that, say the average income in East Hampton is $100,000 per household, people who make $60,000 or less are the only ones who can rent or buy those 15% of those units. So this project will include an interceptor sewer that will run through the development, which allows expansion up Route 66 in the future. It requires a pump station to pump that flow. It will also include a public water system, which will be designed and permitted by DPH and the WPCA concurrently, and will be turned over to the WPCA to operate similar to Village Center, Royal Oaks, and Hampton Woods whenever that reaches its full potential. What this project also does is it allows for the commercial zone on 201 West High Street and 12 Long Crossing to also be connected to these utilities. If this project is implemented as a standalone project and not included in a sewer expansion project, the developer will be installing the utilities himself. Should that happen, anyone who connects to those utilities is required to pay that developer an assessment equal to their percentage of that pipe. That is not something WPCA has any control of. It's in the town charter. So we have no control over it. We've tried to get the developer to waive it. He will not. We anticipate this project going to planning and zoning. You can go to the next one, that's fine. In September or October. So I'm going to go real quick through all the projects and we'll get to the project cost information. So the first project area, Long Crossing to Alden's Crossing to Long Crossing. There's 14 properties affected. There's 211 units. Project cost is estimated at 2.73 million. Next slide. Second, oh, you went. There you go. The next area is Long Crossing to Route 66, and then from Route 66 up Cone Road. This project's estimated at 3.13 million. There's 94 properties and 104 EDUs currently, with the possibility of 139 EDUs. So the next area This is an area where the town is planning to propose the roads, is Abbey Road, North Cone, Seraphin, and the back end of Clark Hill. There's 96 properties, there's 96 EDUs, and the opinion of cost on this portion of the project is 5.9 million. What's currently proposed in the base project is a conventional gravity system where everything flows through a pump, the houses on Abbey Road flow to a pump station that WPCA owns and maintains, and then that pump station would pump it up to Cone Road, which then would eventually flow by gravity to the treatment. And again, this area is currently in the town's paving project. The next area is Child Road. Again, it's in the town's paving project. This is estimated at 1.3 million. There's currently 13 properties, 14 EDUs. And the last area is Clark Hill over by the lake. There's 33 properties, 33 EDUs, and this project has a cost estimate of 2.2 million. There have been several residents on this stretch that have or are very concerned about their septic systems that have reached out to the WPCA, that have received some substantial numbers for their replacement systems. There have also been some systems replaced on Tiffany Court that were extremely expensive. So this is another area that is an area of concern, but again, the town is planning to pave this area. Next slide. Yeah, so that one's gonna terminate on Clark Hill at the intersection with Midwood. So here's a summary of the project. It's estimated at 15.13 million. That is a total project cost. It includes construction, it includes contingency, and it includes engineering. On these pipeline projects, we're at a planning level, so we're at elevation 10,000. WPCA has not done any detailed design. WPCA has not done any site-specific investigations for wetlands and borings and those types of things. So we have substantial contingencies. In my experience as a professional engineer, I worked on the Marlboro Sewer Project. I worked on East Lyme Sewer projects. These projects typically come in 20 to 30% under these estimates because those line items do not get utilized. So this project would encompass 203 properties, 411 EDUs. Now, if you want to do the simple math, you take the 15.13, you divide it by the 203 EDUs. That is the cost per property. Take the 15.13, divide it by the 411, that's what the assessments would be based on. The only reason WPCA is bringing this project forward to the public to discuss is with the affordable housing project going in, there's an opportunity to shift some of the property's costs onto the developer to make this project affordable. Right now, 15.13 million divided by 203 properties, the project is not affordable. Next slide. So this is just kind of a summary because this is a question that's been asked. What percentage of the cost of the project is paving? So I did coordinate with the town director of public works. The town is able to do paving substantially cheaper than the WPCA would be able to do, as we would hire contractors and the town uses state bids and other things to make their costs. So if we weren't teaming with the town, this project would have about $2.5 million paving, of which 1.85 is being done by the town. Next. So this is the cost information, and this is where it goes from high to low. So we took the costs, we put financing into these, and then we did a range of, okay, this is the low end, and this is the high end, and this is where that $40,000 assessment number comes from, because it's generally in the middle of these two numbers. So on the low end, you'd be looking at roughly a $35,000 assessment. On the high end, you're looking at $44,000. Therefore, we say, look, if you were budgeting and wanted to compare this project, $40,000 is probably the realistic number. It breaks out to somewhere about $167 a month. Now, with this project, as Mark had mentioned, right now, there's a $7,000 connection fee. The WPCA has discussed waiving that connection fee for the term of the assessment. Therefore, if you tied in during that 20-year period, you would not have to pay that $7,000 assessment. That has not been officially enacted, but WPCA has had discussions. There's also a hybrid assessment shown on the right, where we reduce the assessments to $27,500 paid back over 20 years, which leaves a balance of $161,000 in annual debt service. And for that, we would put that debt service on the rest of the sewer users. Interestingly enough, the sewer revenue we would generate from the 199 unit affordable housing, for all intents and purposes, covers that debt service. So the residents who are on sewer would not see that cost. Next slide. So this is another thing that was brought up, was project alternatives we could look at to save some money. So we looked at eliminating Childs Road from the project, that saves 1.3 million, and converting Abbey Road from a gravity system to a low pressure system, that saves roughly 1.5 million. Now remember, if we make Abbey Road a low pressure system, instead of having one pump station maintained by the WPCA, each individual house will have its own pump station. That's the responsibility of the homeowners. So if you have an issue with your, and again, we have 250 to 300 of these around the town. WPCA currently maintains about 80 of them, but there are many that are privately owned, operated, and maintained. So that drops the project cost down to 12.36 million, and we have 397 EDUs. So what this does to the project, on the conventional assessment approach, assessments are dropped to 29.9 on the low end, 37.4 on the high end, $125 to $156 a month. In the hybrid assessment, we cap the assessments at $25,000. And in my experience as a professional engineer, that seems to be the quote magic number that moves projects forward. Above 25,000, people don't consider it affordable. Below 25,000, people generally consider it affordable. And I totally get and understand affordability is in the eyes of the beholder. Talk about affordability. My parents are involved in a sewer project in Old Lyme. Their assessments are $53,000. So under this approach, the $25,000 assessment would be over 20 years on the property owner. There would be $26 to each of the sewer users. And again, as I mentioned before, that would be covered by the affordable housing project on Long Cross. So that's the end of the presentation. I kept it brief. We'd like to thank everybody for coming out. We're going to open it up for public discussions. We ask that everyone be respectful, and we ask that there be no personal attacks. Thank you. Mark, are you going to handle calling on people?
Yeah.
Do you want them to come up?
Yeah, well, let me get to that. So is my mic on?
Should be.
Okay, so thanks, Tony. As first public comment, I would like to read the record a letter that the WPCA received this afternoon following last night's town council meeting. It's addressed to the East Hampton Water Pollution Control Authority, Mark Barmacy, Chairman. Dear Mark, on behalf of the town council, I am writing to express the council's opposition to the proposed expansion of the town's sanitary sewer system that has been under discussion recently. As you are aware, significant resident opposition has been received. At this time, the council cannot support the expansion and would not approve the necessary bonding or debt to finance the project. The WPCA has requested to formally end its pursuit of the project would ultimately be a project that would ultimately be funded via assessments on residential property. Your cooperation with the town council and ending consideration of this project is appreciated. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, David Cox, Town Manager. And just a quick follow-up on that and say, while the majority of WPCA's activities are not subject to town council oversight or approval, we do very much value and respect the town council input when we receive it. Based on this letter, it certainly appears that it would be highly unlikely for this project to be approved by the WPCA or proceed as currently envisioned, even with the alternatives discussed tonight to reduce costs. As I open the floor to public comments, I thank you for your input. I thank you for your input at our last WPCA meeting, at the town council meeting last night, and remind you to try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Also, for the benefit of the WPCA, I encourage you to offer input on what circumstances and cost considerations a sewer expansion project would potentially, under what conditions and costs a sewer expansion project might be acceptable in the future. So with that, I open up to public comments. Please come up to the front, state your name and your address.
Salvatore Nusafora, 147 Colchester Avenue, East Hampton. My house is not part of this. However, I'm a 50-year resident, and if you could go back to slide 2 or 3, where you have the 1960s report, there you go. I have been a member of the Chatham Historical Society, and talking with the old gray hairs, some of them are gone now. 1960s, we were forced to build sewers around Lake Pocatapog. In doing so, it gave the developers carte blanche to build the development, ruin the forests, and ruin the lake. Lake, I think it's Lake Vista, the developer wanted hundreds of units. And the town fought and fought and fought to get it down to the number it is now. And the lake is worse now because by getting rid of the forests, the rain and the phosphorus, oils and everything else goes right into the lake, adding to the algae blooms. The lake is worse now because the state forced us to do that. So it sounds like the plan of conservation development has agreed, or it is in there now, to put 198 units along Long Crossing Road. I've had family friends, they're no longer there, but lived on that road. It was a really nice road, very quiet and peaceful. You're screwed. It's on the plan of conservation and development, and you guys are orgasmic over trying to fulfill that. It sounds like, and I'm telling you, you guys need to fight this on Long Crossing Road, or you're gonna get hundreds of units. 190, I'm telling you, a developer is not gonna stop at 198. They wanted 400 freaking units on South Main Street years ago. Okay, and the only reason that stopped was because there was no water. So you're starting to put sewers in with water to follow, and you might as well call Long Crossing Road Westlake Cromwell. Okay, and if it goes onto Corn Road, you might as well call that Trolley Crossing Cromwell. You want to see development, you're asking for it. You're barking up the wrong tree here. I agree with sewer expansion, but if you go back to the Planet Conservation Development from 10 years ago, I believe that, I don't recall Long Crossing Road, but I believe along Skinner Street and the center of town, over by where the old factory buildings are, they're dilapidated. That is where you should be expanding into. That, I believe, is the area that is more acceptable to the town. And if you guys can get funding from the state to do it, I don't think you'll have very many people fighting you. Okay, I think you're barking up the wrong tree here, especially North Cone Road. There are people who have lived there for decades, I know about. Okay, and they're not gonna give up. They've been their family for years. They're not gonna give up without a fight. Okay, so I think you're barking up the wrong tree. Okay, and that's about it, I guess. Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, please come up. If you want to get in line, rather than me recognizing and calling you, whatever works easier.
Hi, some of my questions have already been answered.
Name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, Brenda Perrin, 13 Seraphim Terrace. And one of the questions was, since we already have a sewer on Seraphim Terrace and already paid for that when we bought our property, why would we need to pay again and be included in that? So that was one of the questions. But what I'll talk about is costs, since this looks like it's gonna get stalled. I just went through this in the town of Plainville with my mom last year. And they're in an 80-house community. And, all the houses are, it's kind of postage stamp lots. So the lots are smaller, but there's still a good amount of frontage. And at first they came out and said it was gonna be $10,000 per household. And that they were gonna waive the $3,500 connection fee. So a couple questions I have is, they ended up knocking that down because they got some state money, but they knocked it down to $5,000 per household. And allowed you to take out a loan with the town for 20 years at 2%. So, it was more palatable. So I just have I need to understand the numbers. We're talking $40,000 or $25,000 now to $40,000. I break that down because I just went through this and the numbers are double on the connection fee, which I don't understand because a connection fee is a connection fee, and 8 times the cost on doing the sewer line across the house, across the road. Why is it so much more expensive in the town of East Hampton than in the town of Plainville? And this was just last year. So there's not a long time span for inflation to have affected that or anything. Why is it so much more? Very lucrative contract for somebody. I think we deserve to know why it's so expensive. And that was my main question. The other ones are kind of moved at this point. The one that was very concerning to me was the current and potential dwellings assessment, where if you had the potential, your property would be reviewed, and if you had the potential to have additional dwellings added to your property, you would be charged that additional assessment. Does that mean if we were going to be charged $25,000 for an assessment, if you could have 2 dwellings added to your property, you would pay an additional $50,000 for those potential future additions to your property? That's not right. So I spread that on there, and I needed to understand that better because that just seems wrong. So that's it. Okay.
And I'll just say is that, you know, all those kind of things in terms of exactly if this project were to be implemented or any sewer expansion project is implemented, you know, those are things that are decided later on in the process
Right.
in terms of exactly how that will be implemented. And we haven't got to the point where any,
40,000.
yeah, we haven't got it, we never got to the point where we made those kind of decisions,
Yeah.
but certainly say if you had a lot and there was, you know, again, if there was, it was subdividable, you could have four, say, houses on that lot,
Yeah.
then you would potentially be charged for 4 houses as part of the
In
benefit
my lifetime,
assessment.
I would never do that, so why would I pay that
We
in
can't-
this lifetime?
We can't, per the state statutes, we cannot charge you for more than what's currently on your property.
Or what's allowed by current zoning regulations.
State statutes requires that whatever, so if you currently have, I'll make it up, a 15-acre parcel that you could theoretically subdivide it to 10 houses. We can only charge you for what's currently there, so if you had a single family.
Yeah, because that's important.
So
I'll go sit back down.
I'll answer those questions. So her question was, if I have a 15-acre lot and I could potentially build 10 houses on it, would I be charged 10 times 25,000 or would I just be charged the 25,000? So per Connecticut general statutes, WPCA's can only assess what is currently located on the site. But if you were after the fact, in year 5, you sold your house and then you said, I'm gonna build 10 more houses, we would assess those 10 houses at the same rate that everybody else got assessed at. So at the time the assessments start and what the assessments are based on, it's based on what's currently there. And then any of those assessments that would get put, would get put towards the principal, which would then end, you know, a 20-year note becomes an 18-year note, just like your mortgage. If you put more money towards capital on your mortgage, your 30-year mortgage can be paid off in, you know, 18 years. So another question you asked is why would Seraphin Terrace need to pay because there's sewer on it? That sewer's dried late. Right now it doesn't go anywhere. So you would have to pay so that you can tie into the system on Abbey Road that then can tie into the system on Cone Road that then ties into the system on Aldens and Long Crossing.
Can you answer her other question about the inflated cost of hookup? Yes.
So WPCA the connection fees are set by each individual town. WPCA for years had very, very low connection fees. And we've since raised those connection fees. And what a connection fee is supposed to do is it's supposed to pay back the users who've already paid for that infrastructure that you benefit for. And it's typically paid for by developers. You know, the developer wants to take a 40-acre parcel that's got sewer in front of it that right now has 1 house, and he wants to build, you know, 40 houses. Well, he pays 40 times the connection. So we did an analysis of our connection fees, the cost to build the system, the cost to replace the system, and $7,000 is the number that the WPCA came up.
And also to that, I might add is that the $7,000 is the inflation adjusted value of what the original sewer users that the original sewer users paid in the early 1980s. So that
Right there.
$1,900 that they paid in 1980-ish is $7,000 in today's dollars.
So that 1975 escalated to today's dollar to $6,800. So that's what that number is for.
But why can they do it for half of that cost in another town?
Because
Like,
that,
That's,
other town decided that's what they wanted to set it at. I mean, we theoretically could set it at $100,000, but it'd be zero development. The WPCA has full autonomy on that. They did.
So,
great.
They did do a public hearing on this matter. We went through 6 months of public hearings, 6 months of comment, and the $7,000 number was discussed between WPCA, was discussed between council, was discussed between sewers, people who might hook up to the sewer system, and that number was agreed to by all three parties. So there was many input from many different parties, and that's what we agreed on.
What does that 7,000 cover in feet?
That we don't charge on feet, it's just per unit. So that,
Somebody's 1,000 feet back, it's 7,000.
that would be on the homeowner.
That's just.
Yeah.
Okay, next, again, in.
It's not the first time I've had to interrupt a riled up crowd. Steve Jones, 3 Jacobson Farm Road. We had several questions we were gonna ask, but I think some of them have been answered. But a couple of points that I do think I wanna make. In a project like this, that it's obvious just from the history lesson, which was great, that we've been kicking the can down the road for 60-something years. It's pointing to something that means this is sort of unscalable where we are now. And where it leads me to think is, while I appreciate that it seems sentiment is turning to where the residents want it, we're going to be dubious, because I think there is an intersection of dubious interests. On the one hand, there is the need for the WPCA to increase revenue. In some part, that's to help decrease the burden on some of the citizens in East Hampton who are already hooked up. But then there's the other intersection of interest, that is a developer that cannot, as I understand it, pack in as many houses as he would like without sewer. And so to present to us as if it's a coupon of savings that this developer is gonna do us the favor of packing in more houses in a place where we may not want it, tell us to look at that Christmas present and open it and jump for joy, that's not gonna hit us well. And while I appreciate the position that you're in, sometimes I think my job is hard, this is a hard job. I don't have better ideas for you to think about how you could get this through. Nobody has, apparently, for 60-something years. If you are the chosen ones who can figure that out, and it's a place where we all agree with the approach, I think we would build statues. This feels very challenging, and I would expect that all of us are going to have to remain vigilant because of this intersection of interests that is likely not in alignment with the interests of the town, or certainly from the 100 or so residents on these streets already. So I wish you good luck in trying to do this, but we will have to keep watching because we expect that this may turn again, and we'll be watching.
You're gonna speak?
I was actually. So just to talk on what, I don't remember what your name was, I'm sorry. Steve. So how do we control development in areas if we do put sewer in? Because this is not a unique situation to the town of East Hampton. I worked for the town of East Lyme on a sewer development project. And the way we control development in areas we're putting sewer in is we assign an allowable wastewater flow. So that means, and I'm just gonna make a number up, there's a 100-acre parcel, it's got nothing on it, and we don't want to see more than 10 houses on that site. We set a wastewater flow of 2,000 gallons per day. If a developer proposes 100 houses on it, the WPCA and the town kick it back saying, I'm sorry, we don't have the capacity in our system to do that. If they try to go 830G, we still kick it back and say, I'm sorry, we don't have the capacity for our systems to do that. The town of East Lyme has done that, and they've been able to control development to the locations that they want to control the development to. And then, just because this has been online and some of the comments have made it sound like that, there's no affiliation, there's no deals that have been made, there's no between the developer and the WPCA. We get projects put before us all the time. Our responsibility is to the roughly 67% of the town that has sewer and whether or not we can support these projects. We are not the arbiters of whether or not a project is a go or a no-go. We just call balls and strikes.
Hi, Emily Cronin, 24 Abbey Road. I'm here today to address this board and Mr. DeSimone, sorry, in regard to the way the matter has been handled. From the inception of this project, the WPCA chose to take an adversarial approach with community by withholding information, attempting to undermine wetlands requirements, presenting creative math, and dismissing the concerns of homeowners. Communication from the WPCA has continuously left out vital information such as the anticipated cost to homeowners and most recently the dates and times of this meeting. When this happens once, it can be written off as an oversight. When it happens again, it certainly appears to be less of a mistake and more of a calculated strategy. This grand plan to expand your own customer base has nothing to do with what's wanted or needed in this town. The recent budget referendums prove that East Hampton can barely afford to maintain current services. Yet the WPCA is trying to force through a project that will inevitably lead to more development, smaller lot sizes, and increasing population size. This puts greater pressure on our already inadequate police force, fire stations, and school budgets. While the WPCA seeks to improve its own financial position, the rest of us are expected to foot the bill. So in response to your question of what number would we find palatable? Zero. While it has been frustrating and in fact frightening to find ourselves in the crosshairs of this scheme, we will not be bullied. We will not be forced to fund a project we neither asked for nor will ever need. We did not ask for this fight, but rest assured we will not walk away.
Good evening, Mike Ravillo, 76 Abbey Road. First thing I want to do is I want to thank the board. I was at the last WPCA meeting and then to speak, and then I connected by Zoom for the last part of the meeting. What I want to thank the board for is actually, it was the first group in town that showed empathy towards the concerns of the citizens. Towards the end of that, when an alternate proposal came up, I think the chairman basically identified right there was some equity issues and so on and so forth. But honestly, I think there wasn't a lot of us there. A few of us were there, but I just want to make that point that the board really stepped up and had empathy for the citizens. First time I saw that from the town. Saw it last night too, but there was a little bit of a crowd in attendance. I think that helped facilitate that. The other thing was this, this project, we keep referring to 60-year-old plans, all right, last century. Those plans, those original proposals, they're older than many people in this room. Let's say everybody in this room, just to be nice, but really, we've got to move forward. Okay, we keep referring to 60 years ago we had this plan. Times have changed. The tax base in town has changed. It's not what it was. We know, funding changes, everything changes. So we really got to look at that. Now, the POCD is putting together a new plan, right? And I encourage everybody to get involved in that because when we look at the area, especially around Abbey Road, Cone Road, and up and back there, right? The 2016 plan designates this area as a very low density zone, okay? The population, the citizens in town continually say, we want to keep these areas like they are, low density, right? There's a small population in that area. Now, the other thing is, it's also considered a natural diversity area, okay? So, I look back on those things. Now, I know the cost, and we've gone round and round on the cost and the deficiencies of presenting only only the sewer system part of the cost and not the homeowner part of the cost. We've gone round and round on that. But I think there's other issues behind this too, that we really just gotta take a look at, say, look, in this day and age, you know, in the new century here now, let's toss that 60-year-old plan aside. So people now are asking for something different. That's aside from the fact that, you know, hey, this has been pushed aside many, many times over the years, okay? And then last thing is, you guys are in receipt of a lot of my correspondence that's gone through the town council and to you. A lot of points in there. Again, a lot of detail that was not in the original plan. One of the things I just want to encourage you to do is just, again, with the empathy that you guys showed the previous meeting, is look at it from the citizens' perspective too. And I think a lot of those questions would, you know, would be answered. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Cindy Hibbler. I'm actually the future owner of 36 Abbey Road, so I'm in a kind of unique situation. I don't even live here yet. But I closed on my property in 13 days. My septic system was just inspected. It's fine. Yet here I am about to be handed about $40,000 bill for a sewer that I didn't need, I didn't ask for, and I'm not going to use. That's not infrastructure, that's extortion. I'm a housewife. We're a single income family. I have 2 small kids and we budget for groceries, school equipment, school supplies, sports equipment. So we're not budgeted for these surprise bills that are higher than some car costs. So my benefit here is exactly 0. If there's any environmental crisis, show the studies. If the septic systems are failing in the area, prove it. Otherwise, this is just a creative way to squeeze money from residents and hope that they don't fight back. We need to end this project until you can prove it's necessary, legal, and fair. And right now, it's not any of that.
Good evening. My name is Larry Gersbeck. I reside at 11 North Cone Road in East Hampton. I totally agree, and I thank you for the letter from the town council, you know, opposing this. I'm in opposition. Questions I have, the road paving situation. I find it, I'm skeptical. All of a sudden, fictitious character Bob walks down to WPCA and says, hey, we're gonna do some paving. Oh, just so happens he hit 5 out of the 6, you know, it's like winning Powerball, doesn't happen. You know, I've had potholes in front of my driveway. The road's in disrepair. We get a little piece of this, we get a little piece of that. Now I got this. Well, we're gonna do a sewer project through your neighborhood. But wait, we're not gonna pave your road until we do it. Not good. The other thing, I'm just messing around last night, looking through state statutes, and I come across use of sewer sinking fund. And it states such sewer sinking fund shall be utilized to pay for the cost of extensions, expansions of, and improvements to the East Hampton sewage system, including survey, design, and engineering expenses after public hearing and upon resolution of the Water Pollution Control Authority pursuant to Connecticut State Statute 7-247A, provided provision made for the returning of some or all such costs to sewer sinking fund from sewer benefit assessments or from connection charges levied against the properties especially benefited by the such expansions. Said sewer sinking fund may also be utilized to contribute to the sewer system annual bond payments upon resolution duly opted by the Water Pollution Control Authority. I don't know who can answer if this is enacted, but is this what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a sewer sinking fund. Or a you know, a capital fund that acts in that regard, and we're using that fund to make needed upgrades and repairs to this 40-plus-year-old system in terms of improving pump stations and things like that. So I mean, we are making sewer repairs, reducing the amount of water that's leaking into the sewer. So we do have a fund, and we're using it for ongoing maintenance and repairs.
Okay, so the other question, and I'm in a conflict here. I'm in the building industry. I love to see houses go up. 198 of them, not in that piece of land. You know,
Condos.
so it almost sounds like to me that the developer had a sheet of paper on the table and said, hey, let me throw this at it. Oh, that didn't work. Turn the page. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, wait a minute. I can put in affordable housing. Your hands are tied.
And that's what he did.
You know, and this is what it sounds like to me. The only question I would have, you know, and I see this is all contingent with this program going through and this development. What happens if they decide we're gonna go away with this development and someone in here has a sewer fail or their septic system fails? Is the building department gonna deny their request to fix their septic system or withhold that permit to say, no, we have sewer on your road, you have to go to the sewer now? We're not gonna give you that building permit to fix your septic system.
Yeah, go ahead, answer that, Tom.
So if you have a sewer in front of your house, you will not be allowed to fix your septic system. You will have to connect. And that is in the town charter. That was required when we did the Clean Water Act. So if you have a septic system in front of if you have a septic system, you have sewer available at your house, you are required to connect upon a failure of your septic system. Now, if you are in this area and we don't have a sewer in front of your house, you are allowed to fix your septic system. However, if you're close enough to the sewer system and you would like to connect to the sewer, we do have a small sinking fund where we could potentially do some extensions and levy assessments based on what the actual cost to each of those properties would be, but they would not be due until you connect.
Okay, the other question,
1,000 feet away from the road, who's gonna pay for that?
that's the whole.
Right.
The other question I would have is, if this development goes through and we start getting levied, you know, God forbid, they hit us this lien on our property and we have to start making payments. When do these payments start? And is he allowed to make a dime off of any sale of any of these affordable housings before we get what we get?
Again, in terms of the, you know, based on what's going on, you know, realistically, the sewer expansion program based on input from the town council and things like that, the expansion program is not gonna go forward. The development project on Long Crossing, that is independent of the sewer expansions. That can go on its own as a developer-funded project without any beneficial assessments or need for expansion.
But it does penalize certain residents in that Long Crossing. So please consider that, you know, even those 11 people or 12 people. Thank you.
Stan Riccio, 18 Abbey Road. Well, there's a couple of things that I've seen that haven't been talked about. One thing is some people here have already upgraded their sewer systems. I mean, their cesspool systems. It's a permit provided by the town. They were told this is something they could do. They put out a decent amount of money. And now they're told it doesn't count. So if this should go through, do they get a refund from the water authority for the money they put in? And why not?
Because that's just not how.
That's not how it works.
It's the honest answer.
I'm not so much against housing, because I know that the population is expanding. But you want to do it with consideration of, you know, all involved. A secondary thought is that when you put in a sewer system, when you, as opposed to a septic, you're taking water from your water table and throwing it down the river. If you do that, now you're gonna have to pay for the water system. And this is gonna give you maybe $150 to $200 bill every month between the two of them. And even if it looks good now, nothing stays that way. Just imagine what a phone cost years ago.
Yeah.
And now you pay for the telephone even if you don't use it. The other thing is that, we're seeing things in one way that, what's happening around here. But when you look at the thing in, the past where we had funds coming from the state, which is a good thing, and funds coming from the government, that's a good thing. Looking at that, you say, this is a really bad time to consider this. Because the federal government right now is taking food from children, money from research, not giving any money for things like this. Maybe it's better to wait till there's a change into somebody who's a human. And, you know, Connecticut's under a strain as well.
I thought we're not supposed to get into college.
But there's Connecticut's under a strain in the sense that where they would probably help more with something like this. Right now, they're making up that difference with the schools and with feeding people and so forth. But they are getting pulled away because of filling in the gap. I teach at Central Connecticut State University as an adjunct professor. And I can tell you with the emails going back and forth between the faculty of what's going on and what we're having to fill in with. And we're getting a lot of special needs children there that we've never got before. And we're putting a whole new systems for it to take care of them and give them a college, you know, a chance at university. Finding that something we're really successful at. But the point is, it's some amount of time, it still costs money, and that's also coming from the state. And that's coming from other things that could be here. That's all I have to say at the moment, because I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dee Andrews and I live at 56 Long Crossing Road. I'm one of those 11 lucky people. And I love my neighborhood and I'm really excited to be there. I have a question and an invitation. So first I'd like to know if when those 198 low-income houses, if they are approved, and I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying potentially, like if I developed my 15 acres, my hypothetical 15 acres on Long Crossing, will each of those units be assessed the same lien as an individual house?
If this project were to move forward, yes.
Good to know, thank you. And the invitation is, please don't forget us on Long Crossing. This has been a long time, this 198 unit project comes on the table and off the table and on the table, and it changes and it mutates. And 8 of us show up at inland waterways every time it comes up. And we need every person in this room to show up and talk about what a pump station on Long Crossing Road would mean to Pine Brook, to the community, and to the neighborhood if that allows this development. The next meeting is the 27th of August in this room, and I believe that's at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Caruso, 44 Cone Road. I agree with all of you folks on what's going on. The cost that you're proposing, a lot of people gotta remember to hook up, getting from where you are to the main could be 20 grand. So you're talking $70,000.
Yeah.
That's 2 septic systems on the high end. And nobody's talking about the wells. Impact shallow wells. I got a shallow well. Google it. They'll give you 3 pages right into agencies to contact when this stuff happens. It's a real thing, more common than not. So make that into factor too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Pat Riccio, 18 Abbey Road. And when I heard about the septic system, I called Mr. DeSimone and I had a little conversation with him. And I ended up with more questions and I could really figure out what the answers were. And one of the things that we talked about was, the apartments on, Long Crossing, they didn't have water or sewers. And we're talking about the sewers, but we weren't talking about the water. And I had gone to a meeting as to what do you love about East Hampton? And a woman stood up and said that the water project was going to be $100 million. And Mr. DeSimone said, no, it's $200 million. And I'm just wondering, how does that fit in? And also, he told me that it's all or nothing. We can't do it in increments because he found a water person to, I guess, get the town the water. I don't know exactly what the answer was. And so how does that fit into being burdened with sewers? And then are we all gonna have a water bill? Like, how much is it gonna be? Kind of curious. Thank you.
Very good.
So on the public water system, right now, we've done a study, the members of council are leading that committee. There are 3 members of council on that committee. The current cost to implement the entire planned water system for the town of East Hampton is $200 million. That's what the number is. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We have potentially gotten a grant of $25 million from FEMA, and there's potentially other monies from other water companies that'll kick in on the project. We're not looking to implement, and again, this is the WPCA does not control water. That is a council issue. Water is desperately needed in town, but we're not looking to implement a $200 million project as part of the first phase of the project. The first phase of the project will be a substantial number. We're working with council to come up with ways that we can finance this and make this affordable. Some of you know, some of you don't know, there's a large industry that we're proposing to work with adjacent to the treatment facility, and potentially their tax dollars could be used to offset a substantial portion of that debt service. But again, WPCA doesn't make those decisions. Those decisions are made by council.
Linda Johnson, 21 Long Crossing Road. I was gonna speak on some things, but they've already been mentioned, but we're being told that a developer will install and pay for sewers on Alden's Crossing and Long Crossing roads. Some of the residents of these roads will have to pay, as of now, an undetermined assessment to the WPCA, which in turn will pay the developer. It doesn't seem right that we have to pay for sewers we do not need or want, just so the developer can build a 200 apartment complex, some being affordable, across the street from us. If a developer needs sewers for a project, then he should pay for them.
That's right.
The cost of development should not fall on the backs of a small number of people who unfortunately happen to live near the development. Thank you.
Tony, go ahead.
So just so we can do some, just so you guys can see the numbers, and basically the developer is actually, the developer is taking on a substantial burden of this cost. If we were to, let's go. Hold on, please let me speak. We've been respectful to this point. So if we were to just divide this project along each property, the assessment's $74,000. It's unaffordable. With the developer putting his units in, it's at $40,000, which we all still think is unaffordable.
We are not here to support a developer.
I get that, but what WPCA is presenting to the public and is trying to get the information out is that because of the circumstances that we face today, we have an opportunity to get a substantial portion of the cost put onto somebody else instead of the taxpayers. Hold on, please. Thank you. If this sewer expansion does not move forward, which it's pretty clear it's not going to, the developer will still put in the sewers for his project on his dime. And any resident who ties into that sewer has to pay the developer the assessment equivalent to their percentage of the cost. And again, WPCA has no control over it. It is in the town charter.
Oh, and
Just to reiterate, WPCA has no control over that. Developers are allowed to get recapture for their utility infrastructure that they put in. It's in the charter. WPCA does not have control over it.
But the one thing I will add, and Tony, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you don't have to pay anything unless you connect.
Correct.
So that, yeah, so if you're, as was stated before, if your septic system fails and you have the sewer in front of your lot, you're, by town charter, you must connect. And you wouldn't pay that beneficial assessment until the time that you needed to connect to the developer.
And that bit, so somebody made a comment that you would have to pay $40,000. No. As it currently stands, that beneficial assessment on the developer's sewer, if the developer puts the project in, is anywhere from $12,000 to $13,000. It is not $40,000.
We have that right.
Can we get that right?
When the project goes to public hearing for WPCA, we will have a developer's agreement, and it will state that in the developer's agreement. That number will be locked into that agreement and fixed at that point. But that it will take, once we have the actual idea of what those costs are. This isn't, so there's two separate things going on here. There's the possible sewer expansion where we take a substantial cost from the homeowners and shift that cost onto the developer. Or there's a separate project where the developer does his project, does his development, puts in his utilities. Those numbers are completely separate. Those projects are completely separate.
Keep it that way.
Leonard Johnson, 21 Long Crossing Road. My wife and I have lived at this address for over 50 years. In 2012, we replaced the septic system, not because there was an odor, not because the ground was squishy, but because we were told the water level in the outlet and of the tank was higher than the water level in the inlet end of the tank. In other words, the water in the tank was having difficulty getting out to the field. A Chatham Health certified installer replaced both the tank and the field for $16,000. Again, this was in 2012. The person who installed the original system said it would last 15 years. It lasted 41 years. I expect the new system will last at least 40 years. That means we have at least 27 more years of service left. If, and I repeat, if we decide to connect to the sewer in the near future, then we would have to pay to have a relatively new septic tank pumped out, smashed, filled with and filled in. Not to mention the substantial cost to connect our house to this sewer main near the street. I don't think either one of us will live long enough to see our current septic system retired. I'm opposed to sewers on Lawn and Alden's Crossing roads. Thank you.
My name is Tim Johnson. I live at 9 Long Crossing. July 2022, I paid $22,000 for an engineered septic system. Why am I gonna pay 40 grand for a sewer? Why are we being told originally in the letter that that's to be a $40,000 assessment, which is equivalent to a new septic system? The Valley did the work. They said it may be up to 30 if I have to have a pump and put my leaching field on the far end of my property, about 150 feet away from the tank. So the estimates we were given in that letter, grossly inflated. That system is rated for 30 to 50 years, and I just had it pumped out today. I'm on the plan to do the inspection every year, pump out every 2 years. There's no reason that thing should fail in 40 years. I'm 45 in a couple days. I'll probably never live to see having to hook up to a sewer, but if the town does it to expand the project, I'm stuck paying 40,000. And you think, okay, over 20 years, big deal. You know what that is? That's a 38% hike on my property tax for 20 years with absolutely zero say in it as a citizen of this community. That is absolutely absurd. If you want to get the sewers in, you have to think about how much it costs. It's $167 a month, about $2,000 a year. My property tax on my house is $5,200. So that's gonna go up to $7,200. That's 38% increase. Very good. Yeah, that's also the hookup fees. I'm over 100 feet from the road. I'm on a slab, so I can't go through my basement. I have to go all the way around my house. And I got neighbors behind me. I'll have to give an easement through my own property to hook up to. So that's a massive expense on top of the $7,000 hookup, $40,000 assessment, and everything else. So you want to make sewers in the town? You got to get them affordable to people. I can't afford an extra $2 grand a year in taxes because the developer wants to do projects. We want to loop everything in. If he wants to do a project, he can pay for it himself. I'll hook up to the sewer.
So this is actually, Michael Ravillo asked this question in an email to me, and I just want to thank Mike. He's asked a ton of questions, and we've tried to incorporate as many of those as we can into this presentation. But I did go sit with the assessor yesterday, and I asked her, I said, if we put sewers in front of somebody's house, does that increase the property value of the house? The answer to that is no. It does not increase the property value. They do not look at that when they are doing the assessments.
Yeah, right. So how do we get an assessment if there's no benefit to it?
So the benefit assessment is the cost you pay for your portion of that sewer main. It has nothing to do with the taxes. It's literally paying the debt service on the actual installation of that sewer. And just to reiterate, there will not be mandatory hookups.
Unless you're septic.
Hold on. If your septic failed, almost, every community everywhere requires you to hook into the sewer system. That's just the nature of the beast.
I'm Alberto. I live at 17 Park Hill. My questions are gonna be rhetorical. I come from Hartford, Connecticut. And I don't know about you, but low income housing has pretty much did a major impact on Hartford, Connecticut. They dropped property value. They brought in crime. They brought in drugs. And so much more. Now, they started looking pretty at the beginning. Then end up that way. They're gonna put a strain on the police departments. We're gonna be taxed more because we're gonna need to build a lot more schools. I don't know, fire department is gonna go haywire, okay? Our property value is gonna drop because of this. All right, our taxes are gonna go up. Now, I don't know, but can I get a show of hands of the people here that don't want this project to go through? Any who do? If it's not broke, ladies and gentlemen, fix it.
Right, exactly.
So I just want to remind everyone that and I totally appreciate what you said about affordable housing. I've done work in several cities throughout the state of Connecticut, and yes, they are issues, but a lot of those are Section 8. These are not Section 8 housing, and I just want to remind everybody that we do have affordable housing in town. Hampton Woods is an affordable housing development. Royal Oaks is an affordable housing and development. Laurel Ridge is an affordable housing development. Those have not. There's differences of types of affordable housing. All right. Okay, so there's the word.
Hi, Amy Steino, 30 Childs Road. So I'm an educator and by nature, I'm a problem solver. So I would like to help you a little with your problem. One word I can think of is trust. So listen to us, be transparent, stop inflating numbers, be kind when we call and ask questions, answer our questions, rethink the plan, put yourself in our shoes. We are humans. It's funny, you know, I'm curious as to where you live if you are on one of these streets. When the letter came in the mail.
Jeremy is actually on that.
I'm sorry for you.
No, hold on, Mark, tell her what the septic system replacements on your street cost. Tell her.
Again, I would say that, a neighbor next door to me who had to sell their house.
Yeah.
Had their system inspected and had to replace it. It was, system was 30-some years old.
Yeah.
Spent well over $40,000 for a system.
No way.
Yes.
They got ripped off. Do you want to know why?
Well,
I have some receipts right here. Wait, but wait.
they're all different.
They are all different.
Every
assume.
lot is different.
Absolutely, but we can't put in people's heads that that is the price of a septic because it is all different.
Yes, so I mean, it could be that high, it may not be that high.
Absolutely, but the fact that, you know, I paid 14,750 cash.
Did you replace your tank too, or just your fields?
Tank too.
Tank too.
Did you go with plastic fields or did you go with a concrete field?
That'd be for my husband to answer. I'm an educator.
Well, so on that, so you can't, and one of the operators at the plant lives on Cobalt Road, and he made the decision to put in plastic fields because they are cheaper. They don't last as long, though. That is one of the issues. You can't drive anything more than a lawnmower. If you are setting a tank. Yes, but if you're you put a pool in your septic system?
No, we put a pool in.
Right, so, but all I'm saying is that there are different types of systems. The concrete systems are what we would recommend you put in, but again, each homeowner puts in their own system. The concrete systems generally cost substantially more than the plastic systems.
Oh, probably not 40K plus the hookup plus all the other drama. But anyway, I'm just gonna continue with, I hope my 3 minutes didn't get sucked. Okay. So anyway, so I called as soon as the letter came in the mail. And I had a nice lively conversation with Mr. DeSimeone. And just like a couple of things that we talked about that weren't mentioned tonight through the phone call. You had mentioned that people have been calling and asking for this project that they want to hook up to. So I'm just wondering, where are those people tonight? Are there any in here? Okay, all right. How are you taking the phone? And that's the new septic costs, you know, 33K at least. That's what you had said. And I said I was gonna bring my person tonight to hand out cards outside. And you said you would bring 3 to my 1, but that was just another point. So we're doing this because there's contaminated lands and failing systems. But none of those numbers were presented tonight. So I'm starting to think that's maybe not really the real reason why we were looking into this, which would make sense if it was environmentally harming our lands. I could see that. But there was not one thing mentioned about that. I was also told I'd have to pay the 40K for this, for the new sewers. And then we kind of got into a heated conversation and the water piece came up. And it was mentioned I'd probably have to pay another 40K down the road for that. Or whatever the amount would be. But I guess I'm confused because if the water is not in this first process and then the roads get paved, then it must have to get ripped up again down the road. And then we have that money too. The bottom line is we want answers and you want answers and you want an answer to this. And it's trust and transparency. Break things down and be kind and talk to it like we're humans. We have families. I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids to put through college. I have little kids. If you think I'm going to hand you $40,000 and take away from my family, you're misled.
Hi, Jordan Warner, Oak Mill Road, Town Council. Last night, we all voted unanimously that we disagree with this project.
Thank you very much.
For me to have agreed so fully with the most conservative members of the council, being arguably the most liberal member of the council, was not something I took lightly. This is a project that united all of us across the political spectrum, that we recognize it was something the town, the residents of the town did not want, did not ask for, would not support. We're dealing with several major infrastructure projects in this town right now, and we are asking a ton of our taxpayers, a ton. Education, general government funding. We finally were able to increase funding for road repairs and maintenance, which is rolling out slowly, but it's getting there. We are making progress on those things. The town can't support another major structure like this on the backs of such a small number of residents. It's not fair to those homeowners. It's not fair to the town to ask of it right now. Moreover, the way this has been presented, whether it's true or not, makes this entire project sound like a subsidy to a developer in town.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's true. That's the way it comes across. And when it's presented and inferred by the residents in that way, you're never going to get the support for it. So it doesn't have to be true. Perception is reality. And that's how this has come across. So just think about that as you make your decisions on this. Thank you.
How many people know me?
Whether or not they know you or
Mike
not,
Wall.
you can state your name and address. Oh, sir.
My name is Mike Wall. I've been a part of this town for 64 years. I don't know why every council in this town caters to this developer. This gentleman just brought up, that's why I walked up here. This gentleman just brought up the fact that you're catering to his sewer system, you're catering to his firehouse potential. Does anybody here know what the firehouse is gonna cost you? You haven't even, because they're keeping it a secret. The water department is a whole nother issue that I thought was gonna kind of went under the bridge here, but it came up again tonight. So you got three major projects that this town, who's gonna pay for this stuff? People, and more than this group here, needs to be aware of what this town is proposing to you. Three things, look them up, and get your neighbors to look them up. Thank you.
So based on the opposition that we're seeing here tonight and the paving project on the table, if indeed this does not go through, when can I see my road getting paved? Is there a recommendation that says, hey, we shot this down, we're done?
Well, let me just talk to, like, say, as I stated before, you know, it's unlikely that the WPCA is gonna anyway approve or go forward with the project. This is not an official WPCA meeting, so we can't vote on it tonight. Yeah, we can't, it's an informational meeting, it's not an official WPCA meeting. We can't vote it on tonight. We'll obviously take it up at our next meeting, which is the first Tuesday in September.
Okay, so quick question regarding that in the paving projects. Is the WPCA involved in storm drain? Okay, so that's town manager, because we do not have a single storm drain on our street in North Gulf. So.
Must not need it.
Not a single one. I mean, I lost my street light 2 years after I worked there, because of budget cuts. so.
Yeah.
And this particular developer, I got great neighbors, don't get me wrong, Jeff, I like him, but when he put in his development, Lannery Road and all this other stuff, I spent 10 grand on my well. Because they hammered my well. So, still opposed, thank you.
So to answer your question on the paving, it is in the town DPW's plan to pave those roads this fall. They were actually holding off at the request of the town manager, WPCA, until these issues could be fleshed out. So I'd actually like to ask a question. We feel, or let me just take this off the WPCA and say, I feel, I'm also a resident. I feel it's prudent for town departments to bring things before residents so that they can make informed decisions. I hate seeing roads paved and then ripped up, and the woman was right. Child's Road, if they pave it, will most likely get ripped up when they put the water mains in, because on the first phase, we're gonna bring water to the middle school. They have terrible water at the middle school. They have terrible water at the high school. A lot of people don't realize how bad some of our water is. But the way I have proposed to run our department is to get this information out to the public, and I'll admit that we did not do a good job getting this information out. We had many discussions with town manager and DPW behind the scenes, and the rollout of it was terrible. I take total responsibility for that. But I do feel that it's one of the core missions of government to get information to residents so that they can make informed decisions. And I actually think it's great that you all came out and said your piece. Obviously, I think you all know this project is basically dead, but I do feel that if I take off my town employee hat and put on my town resident hat, I as a resident want to know what are the impacts of the decisions that the town's made. And a member of council who I respect a lot said we've been making bad decisions for 40 years. And we need to start making better decisions because money is finite. We have a lot of infrastructure needs. We have a lot of needs of other things. So I know the rollout of this was bad. I know you guys have been absolutely destroying me online. That's fine. But I will continue to put this information before council, before the board, before the public, so that we can make informed decisions as a community.
All right, with that, is there anybody?
We've got people online if there's.
Well, I'm not a resident, I'm a reporter, actually. I don't know. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Margaret O'Callahan. I'm your reporter for the River East News Bulletin. I started about 2 months ago, and from what I've learned so far is that the community really bands together when there's an issue. When I covered the referendum, I learned that, both sides, it was a very strong argument on both sides, and tonight I haven't seen anybody in favor of the sewer expansion proposal. One thing that I've been missing from covering this for a few weeks that I guess I'm a bit behind on is, so this plan doesn't seem to be going into effect in the future, but since it's not likely, what are the negative effects if this isn't going into effect? Because I feel like I haven't gotten enough information, and trust me, I've been digging and digging. I feel like I haven't gotten enough information on what would be bad if this weren't to happen, because if it's not happening, I'm only seeing positives, so I feel like, yeah, I mean, I haven't really found a lot of positives except for development, and does anybody want development? I've heard a lot of people at the past POCD meetings and people at town council.
Come to my house tomorrow, right across the street, he digs all day long, and all you hear is bat, 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 bat.
Oh,
I can just stay in my house, I'll make you lunch.
yeah, I mean, every time I drive around to kind of figure out where I am, I see a lot of construction, and a lot of people are worried about development in general, especially with the lake, so, and taxes, of course, because then there's the firehouse, and I just feel like there are a lot of things that are, going over everybody's head, because I feel like we're making this issue a bit too complicated,
And I think we need to simplify in order for everybody to understand what's the positive and what's the negative, just so I can put it in the paper. So that's all. Thank you.
And this one thing I
did.
She actually did a really good, on which she was in North Stonington on the positives of sewer and the environmental impacts. You might want to reach out to her. She can give you a good statement.
Thank you.
Okay, and one thing I would do is I would say, I encourage you to talk to town staff, board members, other board commission members to help flush those kind of things out.
Yeah, well, I had a meeting privately with, Dee Simone and David Cox, and, I guess, you know, it lasted about an hour or so, and, it was, you know, it's all a bit vague, you know, and I'm hearing a lot of prices, and I'm hearing a lot of, I guess there's not enough simplifying for people, because a lot of these people, myself included, I'm 19, I don't really know too much about anything, you know, town management related. And none of this information is being given to the people in a way that's, you know, simple enough, except for numbers, and numbers scare people, so.
No, and that's very much appreciated, and, you know, I think, you know, we all have to, you know, take off our engineering hat, our board member hats. I mean, a lot of the board people are, you know, involved in similar industries and things like that, so, we need to take off those hats and put on our public hats in terms of making presentations and presenting information in a way that's understandable to the public, and we can do a much better job at that.
Do you mind if I just?
No, go ahead.
Ryan McCormick, 452 Moodus Road, so I'm not a property impacted. The point I want to make here is it's not just about this project. Now, the developer seems to have his hands in almost every major town deal, from properties for the firehouse. We're paying $20,000 not to make a decision on the firehouse this summer. Right? To land deals with favorable terms, to controversial development projects that have already disrupted neighborhoods. Coach, it's talking about the I put a pool in, and to get to 8 feet, they had to bring an excavator. I thought I was gonna lose my mind during those days that excavator just made that. They're living it because of this developer, and we're letting them get away with murder. At this point, it feels less like the town, like town planning, and more like the town is the host and the developer is the parasite, steering our decisions for this developer's own growth while draining resources from the very community that keeps them alive, right? This isn't just about sewers. It's about whether we let one developer's ambitions dictate the future of our town and drain the pockets of our residents. You can't dress this up as progress. Or I guess you can. You could say this is progress, but it's still forcing, this instance today was forcing residents to bankroll a private empire. And I think it stinks worse than the septics we were asked to get rid of. So that's my point. Very good, very good.
Alan Adler, 68 Abbey Road. I just have one question. If it did go through, and I said, well, I don't want to pay the 40 grand, let my kids get it when they get my house and I die. Can they do that? And I shouldn't say, can they do it? Would you do that and then say, yeah, and then there's going to be an interest on it? Like, will I have to pay, like, if I live there for 40 more years and there'll be an interest charge to my kids? Because I figured if you put a lien on my house, then I don't have to pay it. I can say, fine, I'll save my 40 grand, I'm dead. That's my kids, whatever they get from my house is bonus for them anyways. Now, I'm not for it. I don't want people to think I am. I'm kind of just curious, would there be a interest charge? So I don't know if that's a town thing, because obviously you guys are bankrolling it, I guess.
You know, I mean, again, it would be I don't know exactly how liens work. So I can't directly answer the question. I mean, you know, they would put a lien on your house. I don't know if they charge interest or not.
Okay, well, I didn't know if the town was gonna let people, like, say, if I can't afford to pay it, they'd say, fine, you can just wait till you sell your house and it will be paid eventually because the town will get their money.
In the meantime, you won't be able to refinance or anything else.
Well, I
Unless that
understand.
means that's all I want to say.
No, I understand that aspect of it. I'm just trying to say that why should. Well, of course, I do understand that, but I would like to say one thing, which is just an experience I had in Rhode Island. We have a home there. A guy built 16 condos and he put affordable housing in those. And guess what? Everybody fought it. Let me tell you something, it was ugly. This is a nothing crowd how bad it was. And my wife got on, what is it, the Facebook Friends neighborhood thing, and she said, why don't we hire a lawyer? But of course, nobody wanted to hire a lawyer. So I will say this, if it doesn't go through, but it goes through because he's willing to pay for it, the Alden Crossing people who were gonna be stuck because that's going there, and if your septic fails, I mean, obviously, if you put a new one in, you're probably hopefully lucky. I can't speak for all those homes, I don't know them, but it looks like to me, because how he got it to go through, from the experience we understand, is the state overpowered the town and said, sorry, we think we need it. So I just say to those people, I mean, sure, the rest of us, if we don't get it, we're like, say it's fine with us, but I feel bad for my neighbors. So just the thought, if you were really nervous, Alden Crossing people may want to try to stall it. I don't know, maybe get a lawyer, but I'm not saying to do it because I understand that can be astronomically expensive too, because it's a lawsuit that, you know, you gotta pay for, it's not like what is it, a injury lawyer who said, well, I'll get my money when you win. So just the thought process for those people. I do feel bad for you and hopefully this won't go through, but I was just more curious if I didn't know if anybody who would put them, because isn't the town putting the lien on the house? Yeah, so, okay. So again, the only question would be is who would we ask that question? Because obviously I understand it has something.
Again, you go to the tax assessor.
Okay, Texas, that's, okay, great.
Right, it's probably interest would be there. It's 1.5% per.
So you're thinking, so it would be 1.5 for the, what if you didn't pay?
Yeah, so if you miss a payment that month, it's 1.5%.
Okay, well, that's what I was curious. I didn't know if the town.
And again, I don't know if that's the end of it, but.
But I was thinking I could pass it on, like what the wealthy do with the big money, they just keep passing it on. Okay.
You know, I see that there are a couple people online.
Is there anybody else who has questions here in the room or?
Hi, so Mary Ann Dossler, I'm on William Drive, so not part of the area, but on the sewer system. And I guess the question that I have, and I just want to confirm my understanding, is that there seems to be a presentation that the sewer system on Long Crossing is kind of a done deal, but it's not been voted on, correct, by the land use authorities?
I can answer that, but do you have another question or is that just it?
I guess the question I have and gets to the reporter's question of, you know, what's lost or what's gained, without that having been approved, the pump station that's been proposed at Pine Brook, has significant environmental consequences, and that's not yet been approved. So all of this could potentially go away if that is not approved by any wetlands, correct?
It could potentially go away if the wetlands doesn't approve the pump station. I'll answer those. Is that, those are your questions? Because I'm sure everyone wants to hear.
Yeah.
You all like to hear your answer.
I know, that's what I asked. So the Long Crossing project, there would be the process would be, the developer has not submitted his plans. When the developer submits his plans, WPCA will review the plans, give comments. Once WPCA approves the plans, and if planning and zoning approves the plans, WPCA will hold a public hearing, after which point WPCA will vote to approve the project or deny the project. That's the process for sewer extensions and putting sewer in the town of in the state of Connecticut. But the question the woman asked about the pump station is, we have had in the town of East Hampton, developers put in infrastructure that is subpar. So WPCA has taken the lead on that pump station because it will be utilized for more than just that property to make sure it meets our standards and is not becoming a capital sink for us in the future. So that's why WPCA is permitting that project. And as the woman mentioned, that permitting is at the end of the month. I think it's the 27th of August. So those are the answers to those two questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. And just as a follow-up question, as somebody who is on the sewer system currently, we moved to town in '98. And when we moved here, our annual sewer use, for my husband and I was about $210, if I remember correctly. Our annual sewer bill now is $680. So it has increased exponentially since we've lived here. And also because there is no water system and it's just sewer, it's not a use fee, it's a simply household fee. So our neighbor who has 7 people living in their house pays the same thing that we pay with 2 people living in our house. So being on the sewer system is not a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
So to speak on the question of where sewer fees were and where they've gone, I moved into town in 2018 and I actually live on Hog Hill right there next to William Drive. I am lucky enough to be on the sewer. The reason I moved to town was I had septic systems where I lived and where I was as a kid, and we went through 3 system replacements and I didn't want to deal with that. Plus my wife's from New Haven and she flushes everywhere. But one of the things that we did when I first got into town is I was lucky enough to get appointed to WPCA, and we did an analysis of our sewer rates. We were losing $200,000 a year. We were taking in less money than we were actually spending. And what WPCA had done in the past, and I give this board a ton of credit, we identified the problem and we put a remedy to the problem. And I get that the cost of utilities is high, but we identified an issue and we've rectified it. And now we have a robust budget that allows us to fix things. I don't know if you looked at the town manager's report, but we had a pump station fail on Pine Trail right next to the lake. The hole's the size of my fist in the pipe. It cost us $100,000 to fix it. Sewer related infrastructure is not cheap, and emergency repairs on sewer related infrastructure is not cheap. And again, it's not this board, but previous boards did not do a good job of setting us up for the future. And I know there's a gentleman who works for the town of Glastonbury. Town of Glastonbury has $20 million in its sewer sinking fund. They want to do a project, they just do it. They did a $50 million upgrade at their treatment plant and raised their rates like $25. It's unheard of. They did the proper planning and financial planning for their system. We haven't done that. We're trying to catch up. We're cognizant of the fact that the rates are high. We're not the highest in the state, we're not the lowest. We also don't have a ton of growth. Our user base is somewhat fixed. If the number on the top always goes up and the number on the bottom doesn't go up, the sewer rate has to go up. It's just simple math. Every year, electricity costs more, chemicals cost more stuff breaks. So yes, did the people before us fail the town? In my opinion, yes, but I can't go back and change the past. I can only try to move forward and do what is the right approach for the long-term sustainability.
Before you talk again, can we allow the people online who have questions? I think Lindsay is available to talk.
Yeah, Lindsay, you're up. You're currently muted. There you go. Lindsay, we can't hear you.
She's bored now. Go to sleep.
Want me to move to the next one?
Why don't you move to the next one? We'll give Lindsay another chance.
Lee, you're up. You should be able to talk. You're currently on mute.
Lee Calcaresi, 2A Tiffany Court. My wife and I moved back to town after about 40 years away and bought the home on Tiffany Court. We had the septic system inspected as a part of closing, and it was deemed to be in good shape. Looked at the other houses on the street, and they were all built in the 90s. And I'm wondering, number one, why Midwood Farm and Grayson Court are not included.
Is that your only question, or do you have more? Because I'll answer
I do have more.
So ask your questions and then I'll answer them.
Okay, thanks. As I understand it, one of the drivers for the sewer system expansion was a possibility of contaminated groundwater. And I was wondering if any test wells have been dug to prove or disprove that. And also, as I understand it, the assessment is actually going to be in the form of a lien against the house, which will make it virtually impossible for us to sell our house if we need to. And that's it.
Thank you. I'll answer your questions now. So regarding why the sewer is not on Midwood, the town is not planning to pave Midwood right now. That's why we did not recommend going sewer up Midwood. Eventually, the sewer would go up Midwood. However, we would try to coordinate that with town paving projects, as I had mentioned previously. Regarding the lien, I actually had a woman who lives somewhere around the lake. It's where the Day Point pump station is. So Paul and Sandy's area. She mentioned she bought her house in '85 and there was a lien on it. The lien was not paid off when she bought her house. She just continued the annual payments. So I don't know how those mechanisms work. So I'm assuming if you were to go to sell your house, you'd have to be current on your current liens and you can transfer that to the next homeowner. With regards to contaminated groundwater, we did not do any specific groundwater sampling. We just looked at soil types and previous past studies that have indicated that there are poor draining soils. The town of East Hampton is plagued with rock and poor draining soils, which is one of the reasons putting a water system in has been so difficult. And those soils are not generally conducive to conventional septic systems.
Thank you, Lee. Is Lindsay still on?
I am. Can you hear me yet?
We can hear you now.
Yay. Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties. My name is Lindsay Gianfrido. I've been an East Hampton resident since 1985. I currently reside on North Cone Road. At the beginning of this meeting, you asked what costs would be acceptable for residents for this project. In my personal opinion, and I believe I can speak for the majority of my neighbors, whom I've been in constant contact with since this proposal was brought to our attention, there is no cost that would be acceptable in regards to this project. And I'll explain why. This plan not only forces homeowners to pay this $40,000 cost, or whatever cost you guys are coming up with now. In addition to that, you would have the cost to connect and the cost to keep going, and any construction costs to hook up. In addition to that, tell me if older homes have plumbing that is not compatible and may need to be completely replaced, I believe that money is also coming out of the homeowner. Cost of decommissioning the old septic systems after hooking up to the sewer would also be on the homeowner. You're talking additional tens of thousands of dollars. And before you jump up, Mr. DeSimone, you told the public yesterday, or whenever, that the septic replacement costs between $40,000 and $50,000. I have spoken to numerous companies in the area who say a full replacement of a septic in our town should never exceed $30,000. It's far more often between $20,000 and $25,000. I understand there is a house that did have a quote for over $40,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was a duplex with a much larger septic system that would have been a much more expensive system to repair. Septic systems in our area routinely last 30 to 50 years or more with proper maintenance. Some originals are still working fine after a half a century. I would also like to know how many people on this board are affected by this expansion? How many of you will be writing a personal check for this project if it were to move forward? And to quote you during this presentation, you said this is affordable. I don't think anyone here finds that it is affordable. People who come to this town live here because it's a small town. That's why they keep turning down, putting in large buildings and large franchises, because they want it to stay a small town. They want to have the woods. They want to have the lake. They don't want to look across the street and see 18 more houses. When I moved in, everything around me was woods. Now I look out my door and all I see is houses. That's not what I moved here for. That's not what we wanted. And what you're asking is to increase that. You're taking away more of our woods. You're taking away everything that we came here for. And you're trying to make it a busier town. We can barely keep up with the people we have now. How about we work on getting more officers in town? Who's working on that? How about, I don't understand how this could even possibly be at the top of our list of things we need to fix. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me speak. That's all I have. Thank you.
The only question in that comment was challenging if any of us are in the affected area, and I say I am. I live on Tiffany Court, and my personal situation, just for background, is that again, my house was built in the early 90s. Recently, you know, my system was designed, and I have reserve area for the system. For a backup system in case the system fails. Had my system inspected when it was pumped out a couple of years ago. My system is fine, so that at least in my personal situation, even though I'm in the affected area, you know, I would not be in dire need of a sewer system expansion at this time.
So your vote is no?
No, if this thing ever came to a vote, I would have to recuse myself because I have an interest in it, but we're still in this early preliminary fact-finding stage, but if we ever get a point where it became serious, I had a vote on it, I would have to recuse myself.
So to answer Lindsay's questions, so the typical cost for a house to connect to the sewer system is anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. And I get that there are houses that have 3-foot, 100-foot, 800-foot driveways. Those are going to be substantially more, and then depends on how much rock you're hitting. So this was a question that Michael Rebillo had asked me. You can't, each person's, you know, situation is different. And, you know, regarding the costs on septic systems, yes, it does seem like septic systems in the Alden's Long Cone area maybe have better draining soils than the ones on Clark Hill. We've had residents who live up in White Birch who have paid north of 60 grand, and I've seen some of the invoices. One of our personal family friends, and again, as I've mentioned, I live in town. They live on Haddam Neck Road. Their septic system is failing, and they've gotten 3 quotes, 27 to 32,000, and they're, you know, it's not a huge lot, but they're able to put the septic system right next to their current one. So, you know, when I say the project is affordable, when your septic system fails, you owe 50% of that cost upfront. 2 weeks later, when the septic system is done being installed, you owe the remaining 50%. So if it's $25,000 in a month's time frame, you have to come up with $25,000. And if you listen to Dave Ramsey, only something like 10% of Americans have more than $1,000 in their savings for emergency situations. And again, everybody's situation is different. Where when I say the project is affordable, if you look at the costs and you spread them out over a 20-year period, you're basically getting a loan to, quote, put in your septic system. But also, sewer systems are designed to last 100 years. We have sewer systems in the Northeast that are 200 years old. I've personally worked on sewer systems that were over 200 years old in the old mill towns. You can replace your septic system 3 times in that time frame. And I get it. Most of us will all be dead before we have to get to that. Just, that's all I just want to say is, when we say it's affordable, what we mean by affordable is you don't have to upfront all that capital cost right away. It's similar costs of, we've been able to get this project cost down to $25,000 per assessment, paid back over 20 years. So from an affordability standpoint, we've done the absolute best we can do to try to make this project affordable. And then that cost gets spread out over 20 years.
Hi, my name is Tom Seguin. I live at 47 Cone Road. I have a question concerning the Long Crossing project with the connection for the people that live there. At least, Mr. DeSimone, I believe you said that the landowners or the property owners would have to pay the contractor or the owner of that property to hook up to the sewer system. Is that correct?
That's in the town charter. I have no control.
Okay, no, you said that the property owners would pay the developer.
Yes,
to hook up.
that's in the town charter.
Okay, so who is responsible for maintaining those pipes?
WPCA.
So why are we paying the contractor or the developer? No, why are we paying that?
Because
If the WPCA is responsible for the sewer system, then why are we paying him instead of you?
it's because in that particular case, if the developer installs and pays for that sewer, he's the one who's fronted of the money. He's the one who spent the money to put that sewer in. So that the assessment, when people hooked up, would go to him because it's the developer that spent the money, not the WPCA.
Yes, but if the pipe breaks, who's gonna pay to fix it? The developer or you?
Depends on the time frame.
Depends on the time frame. If it's within a certain period where the contractor has guarantees and warranties, he would fix it. If it's after that period, then the WPCA would fix it.
So it's 5 years? Are we still gonna pay the developer? Is it 10 years? We still gonna pay the developer to hook up to that section of line?
That's the way that the town
See,
charter is
see
written.
again, once again, we are helping this developer ruin the land.
Right.
And by the way, I have just gotten involved and I applaud everybody that came today to be aware. But if we don't go to these meetings and pay attention to what happens, this is exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
People are making the decisions for you and you get stuck with the bill.
Right.
This project is not been approved yet. So please, attend the meetings, and even though you don't live there, it affects you. You drive by there now, where's all the truth? The noise, I live up on Cone Road, I can hear it from there. I'm in my basement, I can hear the ground vibrate from them pounding those rocks.
Really comes by the house.
So I just, I think that's wrong. Totally wrong for us to keep paying for somebody's profit.
Right.
If the town owns or is gonna be responsible for that pump station or the pipe, the developer, once it's in the ground, he's done. It's your responsibility or the WPCA's responsibility to make sure that pipe is sound and it's delivering the wastewater to your plant. No longer the developer should be involved at all. So I hope this developer this project, the wetlands, disapproves it. And maybe we'll just see storage units there or something. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So again, the developer's ability to recapture his costs from putting the utilities in is in the town charter. WPCA does not have any control over that. As I've said before, we've tried to negotiate that out and the developer has every right to ask for that. I suggest that when we do a charter revision, we take a look at that and try to get it out of the charter.
All right. You want 1 second chance?
Yeah.
Quick.
Sound and support 147 Colchester Avenue again. I have a couple of questions and a couple of statements. It sounds like through this meeting, the developer is moving forward with putting us with that plan of 198 house condos or whatever it is with affordable housing. Is that true? Yes. If that is true, then my statement is that is only because water is available and provided somehow to permit that. They tried putting tons of condos and homes on South Main Street and it was denied. Planning and zoning couldn't do anything about it except that there's no water provided and they said and it was because of water that was squashed. So that means he has the water he needs and he can supply all 198 units. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that means Long Crossing is screwed. Okay, so sorry. All right, it's the truth. All right, so next thing, you cannot compare us to Glastonbury. We don't have a highway. We don't have the businesses that Glastonbury has. We are not Glastonbury. We are a bedroom community. We cannot afford this thing. The third thing, just in passing, for those people that lived on Long Crossing for a long time, remember Paulie and Elaine McNano. Paulie was my father's best friend. So if you guys remember going way back when I used to live there, that's my connection to that. Anything else? So he's putting in, the developer's putting in his own lines, but there is no main line for him at the moment, correct? For him to hook up with. That's part of his, when he puts in his lines, there's nothing for him to connect up with that would go to the pump station.
No, there's a line currently on Route 16. He's connected to the line.
He's connecting to Route 16.
Yes.
That's already there.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to get that. There's nothing I can say about that except Long Crossing, you guys are screwed. We gotta fix the town charter, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, is there, was one second?
So, we will, I've talked to the town manager's assistant. We will make this available and try to get it on the town YouTube page if anybody needs to re-see it or has any questions. We would like to thank everybody for coming out. We've heard you. We've heard council and, WPCA will bring this matter up at their regular meeting on September.
Thank you.
All right, and again, I can thank you all for attending, you want?
We've been going to the meetings for a long time and it's a crowded room. Is there any discussion of having the meetings here instead of at one?
So the problem we have is our meetings are all set on Tuesdays at the same time council does their meetings and council's here. If you plan to attend, please give our office a call, ask for Linda or myself, and we'll do what we can to accommodate more people. Zoom is the best way to do it. I'm sure you guys will admit the plant doesn't smell the best.
Not that bad.
Yeah. So, we do our best. But this facility is generally used by council at the same time we're using ours.
And so, on behalf of the board, just want to thank everybody for your comments. As I said, at our last meeting, town council last night, the reason we had this is to get public input and comment. So this meeting functioned exactly as we intended and hoped. So again, thank you for coming out and thank you for your interest and, maintain your interest in the town and trying to make it better. Thank you.